I'd like to call the meeting to order. The meeting has been noticed to Evans Print Media Group, WCOW Radio, Magnum Radio, La Crosse Tribune, Sparta City Hall, and the Sparta Free Library. Are there any changes to the agenda?
I do not have any changes.
No changes. I request a motion to adopt the agenda.
So moved.
Second.
Motion by Mr. Scholze, second. Was that Mr. Hendricks? All in favor? Say
Aye.
Aye. All right. Would everyone please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right, Mr. Russ, can you remind us of Sparta's mission statement, please?
Yes, our mission statement is to educate all students academically, emotionally, and socially to inspire curiosity and resilience.
Perfect, thank you. Do we have any public input tonight?
I do not believe we have any public input tonight.
All right, no public input, so we'll proceed to agenda items. We have Report 2A, Social Emotional Learning District Overview. Ms. Mansky and Ms. Mullen.
All right, thank you. Good evening. So, as you know, there we go. We did go through the board workshop over the summer and developed the board goal, which was focused on improving district wellness and achievement through the implementation of a social emotional learning curriculum. Our strategic plan, we're really focused on building strong relationships as the primary component of student well-being. We want to focus on teaching students strategies and techniques for self-regulation, self-advocacy, so they're really focusing on building their social and emotional awareness. And we plan to embed social emotional learning into our instruction and everything that we do within the school environment. This is just a brief review of the curricular resources that we're planning. We had talked about this a couple of board meetings ago. We went through a pretty stringent vetting process where we did some surveys of all staff, different committees that had been working together to gather information on some of the different resources. Through that process, we came up with a few different curriculums that will be used at the different buildings and different age levels. Character Strong will be the curriculum that's used pre-K so Southside Early Learning Center, as well as Herman Elementary and Montessori. You can see on the graphic there, it really focuses, the big three areas are be kind, be strong, be well. And then under there you can see things such as respect, empathy, gratitude, just as a sampling of some of the character traits that will be focused on through that curriculum. Then as we move into the middle school age levels, grades 5 through 8, we are going to be rolling out a curriculum called Reallyville. The big three areas here are very similar to Character Strong in that it's focused on be strong, be kind, and be wise. And then at the high school level, the curriculum is called 7 Mindsets for grades 9 through 12. And as the name implies, there are 7 different character traits or focuses that curriculum will be going through. As we've been planning this rollout, we have a pretty specific timeline for our implementation. So first I'm going to share what our plan is for our August in-service, which is starting this week into the next week and the following week. The first thing that, Kyla, Ms. Bainski, and I have really talked about is we want to present the why to all of the buildings. So we'll be starting out next week presenting this why, and we want to help teachers to understand that this isn't more work, but it's the right work. And it's not more work when our students are doing better. It's actually less work when our students are doing better. So if we focus our time on building these relationships and these character traits or social emotional aspects, things should get easier in our buildings. Also during this first week of in-service, which is next week, we'll first have some curriculum professional development. So this will be led by the trainers from the companies in some of the circumstances. So Character Strong and 7 Mindsets will actually have some virtual or in-person training. Whereas the middle school level, that's more a video-based type of training that will be going through to all staff in the buildings. Then after that, we will be doing more ongoing curriculum implementation. This will be led by our social emotional learning curriculum support staff in each building. So this is one of the extra duty contract positions that we had gone through a couple of months ago with that decision. So these people will be very instrumental in leading this work in each of the buildings. Kyla's going to talk a little bit more about their role. Let's see. Did I miss one? Okay. There. Am I on the right one? Okay. There we go. Okay. Yep, I missed one here. So in September, after we do the rollout through the professional development of in-service, in September then, we are going to focus our PLC meetings towards the ongoing implementation of this. So we definitely are going to have the primary focus for our 2 Wednesday meetings. Ms. Mansky and I are going to put together some prompts, things just to help shape the conversation to be sure that we're moving forward in the direction intended. Then every month throughout our PLC meetings, we are going to have SEL as a primary topic. The goal really is to have SEL be a part of the conversation within every PLC, but we feel that as we're getting started through this process that we need to provide some structure to it so that as people get used to having the conversations within their PLC groups. And then finally, building staff meetings will also be a chance for continued training and implementation planning throughout the resources. Again, we have the curriculum support person who will be able to be integral with this process.
So for that curriculum support staff, these are their job duties: to plan and implement that initial training, to support and monitor the implementation of that new curriculum. If their administrator asks or approves for them, we will have them model and observe SEL lessons and provide feedback. They'll manage the SEL, for example, the scope and sequence, so the order that we would be implementing those lessons, the different resources that come with them. For some of them, there are things that we would have printed materials for as well. They would communicate directly with the vendor of the SEL curriculum, so if there are questions that the building has, the SEL support person would be the one to do the connections of those types of questions. And then collaborating with the building teams and the building principal, and providing additional training on the SEL curriculum and resources. So we know that this upfront training is just kind of that first round, and as we continue to support our students through with their social emotional learning, that there will be continued learning as well. So as Mr. Russ, Ms. Moland, and I met, and we really thought about how do we take this board goal and move it into action, one of the important steps is communication, and that communication needs to happen with our staff, but it also needs to happen with the families and the community. And so we will be sending out an email to staff prior to the 21st, which is our first day of in-district professional development. The superintendent, Mr. Russ, will be doing communication to the families prior to the start of the school year. And the Sparta Area School District has those mailings that Ms. Wilcox puts together for us. So each of those mailings will include information about SEL, in addition to resources for how families can really help their students with their own SEL needs. And then we'll also have the school board reports in August, October, January, March or April, and June. So the other question that you asked as the board is, well, how do we know if this is working? And so we have some different things some different tools that we can use to help us evaluate the effectiveness of using our SEL curriculum resources. One of them is a teacher survey to get their feedback on how that's working in their classrooms. We also do an SEL survey that the students take, and I think there's about 10 questions at each level to really look at statements based on their own emotional needs. That is something that we do already as part of the DODEA grant. And if you remember, the DODEA grant is the funding source for the high school 7 mindsets. We use that grant to pay for those resources. We also participate in the Youth Risk Behavior Survey, YRBS, which will also give us some data on, looking at trends and patterns over time to see if there are areas that we are increasing in or decreasing. And then we also will look at office discipline report data or ODR data. So that's kind of our big picture of where we're headed. What questions and comments do you have?
Thank you both. Questions or comments from the board? Yeah, Mr. Schulze.
So Ms. Mansky, previous slide just talks about the teacher survey. I'm wondering, is that gonna be coming out from Mr. Russ, from cabinet? Will it be the individual principals, building level? What does that survey look like, do you think?
Well, we haven't established it yet.
Okay. No,
but I envision that coming from Ms. Moland and I.
Okay.
So that it would be the same questions across the district, whatever resource they're using.
That was going to be what I was hoping. Yeah, that would have been my recommendation. So that's great. Thank you.
Other questions?
Yeah, if I may ask, concerning the presentations by the representatives of the curriculum, when will that take place specifically? And would it be okay if a board member or two would sit in on something like that so we get a better understanding of what's being presented?
So the times that we have those set up are the 21st at 1 o'clock is Character Strong. That is at the elementary level. I believe 8:30 on the 21st. Mr. Ott, is that the time that you are doing Reallyville? Do you know off the top of your head? And then the 23rd from 7:30 to 10:30 is 7 Mindsets, and that is at the high school.
Thank you.
7:30 to 10:30.
And if there's any board members who'd like to attend that, please let me know. I just want to make sure if we need to notice or anything like that. So if you are interested at the 21st at 1 o'clock, that will be at Herman for elementary.
It will actually be streaming at 3 locations. We will have there will be a group of teachers that gather at Herman, a group of teachers that gather at Southside, and a group of teachers that gather at Montessori. They'll be watching the same virtual training, but from their own individual buildings.
And then the 21st, 8:30, Mr. Ott, is that confirmed? Okay, that's at Meadowview, and this will be streaming with that. So, okay, so if any board member is interested in attending those, please let me know. Not to say that you all can't come, but I just need to be able to notice things if that's the case.
And the high school training will be a live presenter from 7:30 to 10:30 at the high school.
And Mr. Russ, maybe we could put a document together for that so we wouldn't have to worry about noting it. Will allow a certain number of board members. There's enough opportunities here for us to pick different slots if we needed to.
Are you asking me to send a Google survey out real quick?
Just send a Google document or survey out so we can make sure that we don't have to worry about noting it.
Got it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Awesome. Other questions, comments from the board? Yeah, Ms. Lopez.
Hello. Okay. Thank you, Ms. Mansky, for that. I appreciate and Ms. Mullen for that wonderful report. I think it helped me understand the process a little better, so I appreciate that. Regarding the measurements of success, I do have one question based on the previous question, and that is for the elementary that's being streamed to 3 different places. I understand that the Meadowview one is video-based, but will the elementary one be a live presenter for that streamed to 3 different people, and then will it be interactive?
It will be, the presenter will be presenting just for Sparta.
Okay.
But what we'll have to have is essentially like a person, it'll be the SEL support person, will be kind of the moderator, so they'll kind of, if there are questions from the room, they'll be the one that will direct them to the trainer, the presenter, so that we're able to interact. But yes, there is the opportunity for that interaction to happen.
Okay, perfect. Thank you. And then regarding the SEL and the Youth Risk Behavior Survey, I understand that I'm aware that families can opt their students out of those. And I'm not so sure for myself personally if they've been an incredibly helpful gauge to see where, if our previous curriculum, I mean, these are things that we've been using in the past, is my point, and this is a new curriculum. So the teacher survey, this is a new way we can gauge, measure the success of this, but are there other things that we could do? Could we ask the students themselves if they feel as though this is a helpful process, if they're learning, if they feel as though they've seen improvement, and then maybe questioning the parents as well. Because if we do want this to be who and what Sparta is, or part of who we are, we do need that community and that parent involvement and understanding in the process. And if the more we explain and the more we ask, perhaps the more interest we'll get and the more response we'll have in the classroom, in our families, in our community. So just wondering if that would be possible and if you have any thoughts about that.
I think it would be possible, absolutely. With already doing the SEL survey from Dodea, I would be careful about how many times we're going to survey the kids. That particular survey, through the grant, we have to do 3 times already. Is it possible we could maybe add a question or two to that outside of, like, we have a group that actually reviews that data and compiles and does all of that with the 10, but maybe we would add in 2 that are just information for us. I would be more apt to add to something we're already doing than do another survey. I think kids get surveyed out.
That's true, definitely. With the Youth Risk Behavior Survey, it has the component of controversy, though. I mean, there are some questions in there that parents might not want their children to be asked. So if it were just very, I don't know, informative, but without those controversial components, maybe more students would participate. Just a thought. Mm-hmm. Okay. Thank you.
Other questions? Mr. Weld?
Just to piggyback off that, do you know offhand how many families opt out of the Youth Risk Behavior Survey? We don't need this answer now.
I don't know the answer off the top of my head, no. I can look into it, see if we have that data.
Any other questions? Awesome, thank you for presenting that. I'm excited to see how this plays out and grateful for everyone jumping in, and it sounds like it's a good plan. Thank you. All right, should we move on to report number 2B, facilities assessment and master planning update with Mr. Russ and Ms. Hauser.
All right. Just wanted to give another update on the facility assessment and master planning coming off of Soup with the Soup. We had about 50 people there. It was very good, and I thought it was a very good turnout, good questions, good discussion and dialogue. We started with Soup, of course, and then went into the presentation, Q&A during the presentation, and at the end we had a chance for questions, and then we broke out into round tables as well where people gave their input. So very good evening. It was about an hour and a half. Actually, nope, it was an hour and a half, a little bit over an hour and a half. So it was a very good engagement. So I just wanted to highlight some things that were shared at the Soup with the Soup, or the community engagement. And the first one is the school perceptions survey. We're meeting again on Wednesday with our facility assessment, master planning, and team. School perceptions is part of that plan, and we'll be meeting with them with our goal to get a draft survey to the board for their input, ideas, not looking for approval necessarily, but just an overall initial reaction with that. So that's at the end of this month, with the goal of end of September, early October, getting that out to our stakeholders. So very important part of the process. And once again, these are independent company that does this for a living. It's a company that does this. When you think about surveys in the state of Wisconsin, you think of school perceptions for the most part. Once again, they're here to organize, gather, and use data to inform anyone that uses their service of strategic decision making. Not to tell you yes or no, It is decision-making in data. Once again, we need to educate. It's not just, hey, will you do this or this? It is a storytelling mechanism that a lot of districts and a lot of companies use to get more information out to the public and out to their stakeholders. It establishes, what do the districts feel? What do the community feels? And this goes to every box holder. So it's not just online. There's an online version, and yes, online is easier to analyze and stuff, but there is a paper copy, and that's what needs to happen. So it takes time to gather that information. It says satisfaction, referendum information, tolerances, but we really want to use it to gauge if our community is interested in exploring possibilities for our district. We firmly believe, as it says on the slide, if they understand the plan, we firmly believe they will have a voice in the plan, will have support for the plan. But it's that voice and understanding so everyone can make an informed decision. So once again, hopefully by next full board, we'll have a report on that with some information. And then at the end of September, early October, get that. It should be hitting the mailboxes at that time. And then we briefly went into the district facility assessment report. The 300 some page document is in it's in color, it's great, so it shows a lot of information, but we also showed the summary information in regards to every one of our buildings minus Herman. And ironically, it said the plumbing was poor, and they're fixing the plumbing issue at Southside tomorrow. So it'll take a couple days. So once again, it doesn't tell you when it's going to fail or if it's going to fail. It is just an overall condition, and this is in collaboration with Bray Architects, Market & Johnson, and the roofing had an independent roofing contractor as well that did all that analysis. So we showed all the summaries of that. Once again, that was still on the 20th. A lot of this information is still from the 20th in July when we shared it. And then we went into preliminary concepts. Everyone wants to see the preliminary concepts and everything. And once again, these are brainstorm. These are nothing finalized by any means. These are simply brainstorm topics. And that's when a lot of the creative juices start to fly and say, hey, what about this? What about this? I can see my student in here. I can see a use or, have a question with that. So Southside, the master planning, some things that we would like to do right away. And I'm going to back up. Ms. Hauser is going to talk a little bit about finances, and you're going to hear a little bit about phases, phase one, priorities, and stuff like that. Everything that is deemed red on these on the facility assessment would be considered a phase one opportunity. So those are the things that we feel that, based on our assessment, need to be immediately fixed or more priority over those that might be in fair or good condition. So then we get into different phases in the different buildings. This is south side. If you look to the top or the north side, right now buses park on the street. That presents a hazard. One idea for a phase one approach to this would be to get those buses off the street for the safety of everybody. So that would be expanding the concrete area to the south or towards the building that way. Renovations to the blue or the main building, that's from the 60s as well. And then if the state decides to go full day pre-K to get compensated for that, that would be an option. And then if we look to maybe do a daycare opportunity down the road as well. Once again, options, but these are all conceptual designs and ideas. Montessori, this was a new ad from the 20th. There has been some discussions informally with Montessori and High Point joining, so that's the K or pre-K through 12 idea. And if that would be the case, if we do need to go to ninth grade or through ninth grade, we would need to add on there, which would include a gym, because if you add the high school, the gym or the cafeteria area, which in Montessori is the same, it just wouldn't work for you. So the idea would be to add a gym, a competition gym, which could be used for outside events and FIAD and those sorts of things, and then use the cafeteria as the cafeteria or instead of the gym and multi-purpose. Meadowview, this building here, we talked about phase one. The largest priority of this is to get that entrance re-secure. It's secure right now, but when you walk up, so there's a question of which is the main entrance, and we can secure that up a little bit. So really dive into that, the main entrance to make it clear and to make the building entrance more safe. As a potential as well, when you look at the floor plan, if you look at the light blue or the blue types, those would be light renovations. The stepped room that's right down the way here, we would look to fill that in. And use that more as a usable space. Ideas about right now we have 2 LMCs, a 5.6 LMC and a 7.8 LMC. Could we repurpose those areas and make 1 LMC, for instance, to maximize our space, and how do we utilize it? On the very bottom of the PowerPoint, the red area there in the blue, that would be upgrades to our tech ed area here at Meadowview. Also, the red area would be an expansion of the weight room as well. So tech ed and weight room area, it would probably triple our weight room size, which is maybe quadruple, because it needs a lot more space, to say the least. Phase two, when you look at the outdoor, this would be a phase 2 idea on how do we do our outdoor spaces for accessibility and to revamp our areas. Currently, if you look to the right or to the north of the complex, right now that is a football field. The kids are out there practicing on it right now. An idea would be to make that a 2-station softball competition to bring softball onto our campuses. And then to the south side there, redo the football field with a track around it as well. It would be a competition football field. The track necessarily wouldn't be a competition if we didn't want to. We could still use SHS's track for that if we needed to, but it would be good enough for practice and that sort of thing. Currently, our middle school track team runs to the high school. They get their bags get transported and they go from there. So. And then potentially adding another tennis court and pickleball court to the east side of the tennis courts as well, as an idea. So again, make this all accessible and to revamp our outdoor spaces. Now SHS, where a bulk of the work has been in, just due based on to the needs. As was stated, the red dashed line there around, that is the 1960 original building. Upon the assessment, there's no immediate danger or anything. However, that is in need of being redone sooner than later. We're going to talk about the reasons why of this. Special ed in that area. We have special ed in that area. We have business ed. We have family consumer science. We have social studies. We have the LMC. We have tech. We have a lot of stuff going on in that area, and to do a lot of things that we would like to do. It's all in the phase 1, which includes, and we're going to get to it on another slide, auditorium upgrades with the seating, greenhouse expansion. Currently, our welding shop is I think it's a very nice shop. However, it's detached, and that presents a lot of safety concerns and that sort of thing. So, looking to rebuild that and build that into the building as well. So, a lot of upgrades. Once again, still update weight room, fitness, locker rooms is also a need. Once again, at the Soup with the Soup, I did offer anyone that wanted to go to the locker room. We just finished the first week of football practice, and I didn't get any takers on that one. But with site improvements, we're also talking about our track is at the end of life, so we're looking at a lot of additions there. The dashed line, I'm going to go back to that real quick. If we were to fix that, it needs a new roof and needs new exterior walls and some interior walls as well. It would be very costly, and it's not a summer project. That would be a long-term project if we would just rebuild on that site there. the kids would have to be relocated to different learning spaces and that sort of thing. Which leads to possible ideas about phases. And Ms. Hauser is going to get into some phases in a little bit here. But it really, phase one really addresses the need for special education, instructional kitchen, do more kitchen space by adding a northeast wing to the facility. Currently where the big Spartan is. That's what I kind of use that as a landmark. We would save the Spartan. We would move that in a different area. But really look at relocating that red dashed line as an idea up to the northeast corner. And it would meet and add everything we needed to do. Everything you see in these conceptual drawings minus the gym, which we're going to get to in a little bit, is the same amount of square footage and parking spaces and that sort of thing. So they kind of said this is what we currently have and replicated it through the process. Once again, performing arts, CTE, tech ed, and those instructional spaces as well. And phase two, all the ones that are crossed out are taken care of in phase one. So the last ones that are really what we consider a phase two would be the relocating the kitchen and cafeteria. Oops. Sorry, I'm looking off double screens here. Would really focus in on adding a potential 3-station gym, weight room, locker rooms, and relocate the cafeteria and kitchen area to the back of the facility, which would make it a true front of the facility as well. And when Mr. Ford was talking in his group during the Soup with the Soup, and they said, well, this cafeteria seems to be, seats enough kids, and, it seems big enough. And Mr. Ford's like, oh, that's right. But it's not necessarily about the cafeteria space as well. It's about the kitchen space that's on the other side of the wall. I'd say it's about a third of the size as Herman and Meadowview. The serving area where the kids come in is very small. So it's an entire revamp of the entire area in that one. And if we would flip the kitchen and cafeteria to the west side, that would open the cafeteria area for a new band and choir area, and where the band and choir is would be an entire fine arts complex back there where they would do their set building, practices, rehearsals along, so it would be very close proximity to the auditorium for their performances. And the conceptual design is there on phase two. But once again, we feel that this right here is the master planning process about what our district could look like in the future as phase did. So once again, our main purpose through this, and I know Ms. Hauser is going to talk about finances here in a little bit, our main purpose and our main goal is to really show and have our community understand the need for the concepts behind it before we start diving into say how much is it going to cost. Say, hey, this is what we think about it. Yep, I think I'm on, it sounds like a great concept. I can get behind that. And now we do the finances and say, well, I like the concept, but this, rather than saying, well, I just don't want to afford that and I'm not going to listen. So that's kind of our plan moving forward here as much as we can. And with that being said, I'm going to stop there and ask any questions before we dive into the finances.
What would the strategy be for our band and choir student if we were to implement a phase one, phase two situation? What would be the strategy for? Will they just keep their band choir rooms until? Yep. Phase one, until the idea. Once again, it's the idea. Doesn't mean that there's not another idea, but the idea would be if we would create that cafeteria, the new cafeteria. That's when band and choir could potentially get a new location, yes. So that would be could be a phase two, but when we start looking at finances, some things might be broken down in a little different way. And where is our industrial kitchen going to go? If
it would go on the west side of the building.
Okay.
The other thing, Mr. Russ, you and I had spoken about is the performing arts, the fine arts aspect, where the current band and choir, we talked about that potentially as a phase 3, right?
Could be.
I mean,
Once again, it's
that way you're still allowing for classrooms for choir and band while the new area is being built, and then they move over. And
oh yes, there's
they're not displaced. I
no,
guess is what
no.
I'm saying.
The when we started talking about this, it goes back to when I mentioned the 1960 edition, the 1960 part. If we were only to fix that part up, we would relocate our kids because it's not a complete tear down, but it is a pretty close to complete tear down. So one of the things when we said, well, we don't want to disrupt the learning and portable classrooms potentially, when we started going through this process, everything flows very nicely in theory when we build the northeast side and build that, okay, move in there, and now we build in the cafeteria area, we move in there, and then we build in the new cafeteria area becomes the construction area for choir and band. They move in there, and what needs to be done with the fine arts in the back might not be that much. So, but there is a rhyme and reason for everything that's step by step with the least disruption to the learning of the kids, because this isn't a summer project.
Other questions, comments? Yeah. Mr. Kemp.
I probably have a pretty easy one compared to that. If we go back to the facilities assessment, Maplewood roof 20% red. Didn't we just do the roof like 2 years ago?
Yes, we did just redo sections of the roof. So the main roof structure that was the shingled roof is what we redid, but there are sections of the roof that aren't shingle, and those need repair.
Thank you.
Yeah, it's a good question because we just, with the referendum that we passed with Herman, there was money set aside for Maplewood. We just did the roof there. However, it was not an entire redo of the entire complex.
So since Maplewood was included in that referendum, when we still have referendum dollars left, could we use those dollars to finish the roof?
Nope, we're out of referendum dollars.
I can take that. So we had 2 different questions on the referendum, one for 28.5 million and one for 4 million. The 4 million one was everything but Herman, and that one is completely used up.
Okay, thank you very much.
Yep.
Mr. Russ, I have a question regarding the school perception survey. Excuse me. What percentage of the community needs to be involved in that in order for it to be an accurate data set?
Oh, that's a good question.
Sorry.
I can get back to you when we meet. I can ask that question.
Okay.
I'm thinking 20%, lower, 15%. I'll get back to you.
Okay, thank you.
Ms. Hauser said she didn't know. She looked at me and said, I didn't know, so I threw out numbers, and she's like, you're wrong.
Okay.
I can get back to you on that.
That would be wonderful, thank you.
Yeah.
And then also, how is that survey implemented? Is it one per email address, one per household, one response per name? How do we make sure that everybody can be involved and not one person submits 100 responses? And then is it confidential?
So as far as submitting multiple responses, even the printed copies, each one will have a unique serial number in essence on it, so you couldn't go and make multiple photocopies and fill it out. So we control the printed copies with unique serial numbers, and then School Perceptions actually collects those paper copies and types them into their database so that they ensure that there's no duplicates. As far as the electronic, I believe it's email addresses, but we can confirm, but there is a way that they know you aren't submitting multiple ones.
Okay, and then is that email address tracked by or made available to the district, or is it considered a confidential type of survey so people could feel comfortable answering honestly?
I don't recall, so we'll have to verify.
Okay, thank you.
Yep.
And I have one more question regarding I know that all of these are just proposals and everything. When it comes down to it, who is the person or the group or the committee that will make the final decisions as to how we do things, what it looks like, the order we proceed? It's not the board, is it?
It is the board who makes the final decision to do that. Yep.
So similar to when I was sitting out there hearing discussion about Memorial Field, same process.
Same process, because we had a planning committee that developed and established ideas or drawings or idea thought processes, but then the board always made that decision.
Okay, so the decisions are, or the recommendations are made elsewhere, and then the decisions are made by the board.
The decisions are made, so part of the decision, part of the process through school perceptions is giving the board the information of what school perception says, this is the information. Going back to 2017, there was 3 main phases. There was Herman, there was stuff at the high school, and I'm going to say a lot of other things. Through that survey, it was found that Herman was the only one that would pass, that would have a high probability of passing. Then the board made that decision to move forward or that. So the phases and that sort of thing, school perceptions will give you an information, but because we'll get the information back at the end of November, beginning December, and the board, if the board decides to go to referendum, it will be in mid-January to do that. So it's a quick turnaround to do that.
Sure. So I'm sorry, I was getting ahead of myself. If this were to go to referendum and these decisions need to be made, like this type of thing that we have on the screen right now, a committee other than the board makes those decisions, or no, it's still the board.
The board sets, if the board says this is what the idea is, we're going to build hypothetically, we're going to build a second-story complex on the northeast side. We are going to fix all the reds. We are going to do CTE. We're going to do X, Y, and Z. That's what the board says. And then there's developers that start to put things down into really play. This is what it's going to look like and that sort of thing.
That, and we would typically have a committee made up of several stakeholders in the district. So I would assume the high school leadership, pull in different departments from the high school. Maybe one meeting we have the special ed department in, one meeting we have tech ed in, so on and so forth. We talk with Ms. Moland for accessibility, things of that nature. And so those are committee groups that typically meet once a week, once every other week, and we start to frame the ideas, and then we would bring it to board for approval. And there definitely could be board members part of those meetings, but it's internal stakeholder meetings that then come with recommendations for the fine tuning of the concepts.
Okay, very good. So it's a larger voice than the 7 of us.
Absolutely.
Thank you. Yes, exactly.
Good questions. Any other questions?
I have two questions, I think. One is it unusual for the large gymnasium, the competition gym, to be kind of buried in the middle of the building? Wouldn't they usually have exterior emergency exits, that kind of stuff? And so what is, and I'm sorry, my vision isn't good enough, what is the orangish space that's directly west of what would be the new gym? What does that say?
That's the cafeteria.
Okay.
And then the kitchen is to the south of there. And receiving area.
Oh, I'm sorry. Then what is in the what is now the Alask gym? What's that blue area?
That is still the Alask gym.
So
that is up to, that's an idea. The questions, Pat mentioned, so is that the competition gym? We have not said anything about whether that's going to be the competition gym or not.
Okay. So
Central has something very similar. They have a competition gym, and then down the hall, they have their field house.
Oh, okay.
And so, John, if you're looking at that, the bottom right-hand corner, you can see the 3 basketball courts. Directly below that would be the cafeteria. Directly to the right of that would be the kitchen area. Does that help clear that up? So, yeah, right now we have the Alask gym, but there's potential, there's some good opportunity in that lower right-hand corner to add on 3 spaces, and then you're looking at the cafeteria below that.
And a weight room's in there as well. So once again, it's.
And so approximately how much additional square footage would be created by this plan?
it's really not that much. Besides the gym is additional square footage. Everything else seems to try to mirror what we have already.
So the two-story addition on the northeast side mimics in space what will be lost by the...
Yes, and the what's called the English wing. Number of classrooms, space, the LMC would be in there. So yeah, the spaces might be bigger, but all in all, here's some handouts that Mr. Ford decided not to give you when you entered. No, these are printed copies. Nope, I'm good. Once again, concepts, that's, once again, with this, but the plan is not to decrease what we had. So the English, social studies, family, consumer science, business, LMC, special ed would all transfer to the northeast side on a two-story facility.
Clarify, I don't think you said that the first time around. Two
No,
stories
I'm sorry, it's
on the north
two-story.
side. Yep.
It's a two-story hub, an elevator, accessibility, everything. The goal in the master plan is to make everything accessible.
Yeah, good. Other questions? All right. Ms. Hauser?
Okay, so going back from the conceptual drawings to the status of our existing buildings, the first column, called capital maintenance high priority items, that would be fixing everything we have that is in red on our facility study. So anything that was deemed should be fixed in the short term, that's what's included in that column. At the high school, that would be, in essence, demoing the 1960s or close to demoing and rebuilding it exactly as is. Meadowview, all of the red items, Southside, Maplewood, and Montessori. So high school, to fix the red, about $45 million. Meadowview, $1.7 million. Southside, $1.7 million. Maplewood, $2 million, and Montessori, $6.9 million. That's just to fix what we have that's in red. That's when we started talking about master planning, and is fixing what we have, what we want to do, or could those educational spaces work better for our students and our community? And that's when we talked about a master plan at the high school for the year 2020 versus how things were built, in the 60s, and our support space is what we need to for what educational programming is today. So the master plan that we just looked at for the high school, to go all in, would be about $139 million. So then we looked at, well, what could that be in phases? Because that $139 million still doesn't fix the red items at Meadowview, Southside, Maplewood, and Montessori. And so again, phase 1 that Mr. Russ just reviewed would be $85.5 million. Phase 2A is all of phase 2 except for that new 3-station gym. That would be $28.5 million. And then for that new 3-station gym, that would be $24.7 million. At Meadowview, to do the complete master plan, which is fixing everything in red, plus the LMC areas, the outside areas, that all-in cost would be $19.3 million. And for Southside, if we were to do renovations to the older parts of that building, as well as build the new addition with 4 additional classrooms and the new gymnasium, that would be $14.6 million. Any questions on the pricing?
Before the questions come in, some questions come in about, well, inflation, you know, if we build this today, this is for then. They have a lot of inflationary costs built in. They have basically, you know, furniture and that sort of thing is all built into that. When you look at phase 1 at Meadowview, that is the front entrance that we talked about earlier as being a priority. And then the almost $200,000 at Southside, that is that new park, the new bus area for that. So that's broken down like that, but we got a lot of questions about inflation. Yep, so it's all part of the, you know, Markin and Johnson did a lot of work. There's a lot of back documents that go into this document. Okay, so there's a lot of things there. So Markin and Johnson's did a lot of the legwork for us with that.
And you won't see an all-in cost for Montessori because we just don't know enough about what the vision there is yet. So there is capability on the site for something more, but we just don't have enough conceptual ideas yet. So for Montessori, in the meantime, it would be fixing the red on that building, which is the $6.9 million. Any other questions? Yep,
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Yeah. So for the high school, that 45 million figure, that's for just doing that 1960s portion, right?
And all of the red, so there's some roofing in there, some plumbing.
So that would be needing the portable classrooms, right?
Yes.
Is there an additional cost with the portable classrooms?
Yes.
Or is that factored into the 45 million?
It is factored in, and the cost is over $1 million.
Okay.
Any other questions on the pricing?
Oh, yeah, Mr. Burns Gilbert. So my question is, okay, so we have if we're going to do everything, we're looking around 173 million then, correct? If we were going to do the high school master plan, Meadowview, and Southside master plan altogether.
I think that's
approximately
low because you'd want to add in the red at Maplewood and Montessori also.
Okay, so, all right, so we're around 180, and if we were just to fix the high priority items, that's around 57 million, approximately. Correct? Okay,
Yep.
I just for clarification purposes, thank you.
Yes.
Other questions?
I guess I do have a question. I'm not sure how to phrase it so that I don't sound stupid. But okay, so the high school master plan, that if we were to go with that option, we would not be spending the 45 million for capital maintenance.
That is a great question. You
Oh,
are
good.
correct. Any of the master plans take care of the items in red or that first column also. So if we do any of the master plans, they would be the additional, plus they would take care of the high priority items.
And then my last question, Mr. Russ, thinking back to the previous section that we talked about and the square footage at the high school, the square footage at the high school, if it's not significantly changed, it must be adequate and also looking to the future sufficient for our needs as a community. Is that?
We believe so, yes.
Okay. And it will be able to include or update all of the technology and all of the infrastructure that a school, if it were built new today, would also include.
The infrastructure, yes. When you start talking about updating equipment,
I'd say that's twofold.
Yes.
So the mechanical systems, like the HVAC mechanicals and that type of technology, yes, would be updated. Students' one-to-one devices would not be included. So it depends what type of technology.
Yeah.
But this does include a furniture budget as well to get, again, the modern learning type furniture and also equipment. So tech ed equipment and things like that as well.
Excellent, thank you. It does include tech ed equipment?
We put in a round budgetary number to outfit the building. So this
Excellent.
would be outfitting the building, yeah.
Excellent, thank you.
Other questions?
Mr. Russ, help me to understand the need for the 3 additional, or the field house, the extra PE space.
Yep. The thought behind that is that currently we have our competition, our varsity practices are going to 8, sometimes 9 o'clock at night. Currently our wrestling room is small. Our gymnastics is off-site. So the adding of the gym space does a couple things. One, it gets wrestling and gymnastics a more permanent space, which we are looking at the old gym area right now. It will also allow our high school athletics to practice immediately after school, which means that our clubs in our community, they can also go practicing right away after school, right at about 6 o'clock-ish. Therefore, they're not practicing, because right now they practice at 7, 8 o'clock at night. So the rationale would be to increase the space, so we would have more school practices right after school. We would have them on site for gymnastics specifically. Right now we partner with the city in their facility, which is, the city's very graceful, and we don't have another spot. We can host a competition in the old gym, but even then, we're still having mats outside the door. So it's really to increase our community access as much as possible at a sooner time. That is the idea behind that.
And to elaborate on the gymnastics aspect of it, right now they don't have a full floor to practice on, and they don't have a full tumble track to be able to do vault and so on and so forth. And like Mr. Russ said there, we've got around $45,000 worth of gymnastics equipment that we pull out 4 days a year.
Once, twice, yeah.
And so it gives that permanency on site for those high school students.
Yes, to speak to the club, my grandson's 11-year-old basketball team last year practiced from 8 to 9:30 2 days a week. 11.
We're hoping from the high school level, we don't have, we have split practices right now. Some people may say, I can't get back. I got to get a ride back to home, and I don't have a ride back. We try our best to have spaces for them after school, but it gets difficult. So we're hoping that increase our co-curriculars, our numbers, by having right away after school, more opportunities. And also it's twofold, as Mr. McKenna said, get our community events and our club events in there sooner too, so they can get to bed. So we all can go to bed.
Mr. Burns-Gilbert, a follow-up question. Ms. Hauser, so I might have been confused when Mrs. Lopez said this. So if we're looking at the high school master plan, that includes all of the high priority items in that number, or only the high school high priority?
Only the high school
Okay.
high priority. So that we'll call it 138. 45 million of that is, if we were to fix the red, that's kind of like the sunk cost. So anything above 45 million would be the additional cost for the additional items we would be getting.
So essentially, if we were going to do the high school master plan and all of the high priority items, we would subtract the 45, but add the rest of them to the 138. Okay, thank you. I heard yes, so all right, perfect.
Other questions?
Maplewood does not have a master plan. Is that correct? I
That
can't
is
recall.
correct.
Okay, so it's,
There's no intent to change the use of the space there. This red number is also somewhat high, probably in reality, to what we would do, because it's based on what they observed in red. But for example, the basement at Maplewood, they talked about the flooring isn't great and the ceiling's not great, but that's not a usable space. So this is kind of for Maplewood specifically, we likely wouldn't reach that. The other buildings are all in usable spaces.
thank you.
Yep.
Any other questions?
Okay, then I can talk about financing.
Yeah.
So when we talk about our tax levy, I'll go back to the bucket visual, especially this time of year, you'll hear that word a lot. But our tax levy is made up of 3 different pieces, or consider it 3 different buckets. The first one in the red is the revenue limit levy, which that's the levy that pays for all of our operations. So our cost to educate students, whether that be salaries and benefits or our utility bills, our technology, that all comes out of there. And that levy is pretty well controlled by the state through the state budget process, and then also our enrollment. The second bucket, which is the debt service levy, is any dollars that we pay towards debt, whether that be for our required debt payments or to prepay or defease debt. And then the third bucket is the community service levy, which for us, the majority of that bucket is our WIN after school program, as well as our middle school co-curriculars. And so when you add all 3 of those buckets together, that equals our total tax levy for the district. So this chart is showing our mill rate, which the mill rate is a calculation based off of the total tax levy. That first year there of 2017-18, that's the year that we started promoting the referendum that was for Herman Elementary. So at that time, our mill rate was $8.80. And in all of our communications, we communicated that we would not increase the mill rate by more than 39 cents. The year after getting the approved referendum, we were able to keep the mill rate steady at $8.80. The second year, we did go up the 39 cents that we had talked about. And then each year thereafter, we've actually dropped the mill rate to, this past year's mill rate was $7.34. So that shows that we held our promise to our taxpayers the last referendum around, and we've actually been able to decrease the mill rate when the original thought was that we would hold steady at that $9.19. Additionally, because we've been able to maximize our state aid reimbursement, that red bar, which is our revenue limit tax levy, you can see that that has continued to decrease, which means that we're maximizing the amount of state aid that we get, so we're decreasing the amount of our local tax levy. And so with that red bar decreasing, which again, we don't have much control over, the one bar that we really can control is the yellow, which is our debt service levy. And that's where we've been using the strategy to prepay debt or pay down our debt ahead of schedule. So we have our required debt payment and we've been paying more so. And so that prepayment has saved us on interest costs by cutting down the life of our debt. And it's also helped us to maximize our state aid reimbursement. So that money is working for us. So this chart shows a visual of the yellow bars down at the bottom are our required debt payments remaining for the Herman referendum debt. So again, that debt we took out in 2018. So the prepayment should have been, or I'm sorry, the debt was a 20-year loan to be paid off in 2028. As of going into this tax year, we already have 5 years cut off the life of that debt. And if we continue to prepay or defease debt this year at the rate that we did last year, that's what that gray bar represents. So if we make the same exact debt payment this year as we made last year, that gives us up to that blue dashed line. So that's all of the capacity that we have to have the same debt levy. Each time that we prepay the same amount we did last year, it cuts 2.5 years approximately off of our loan. So if we defease the same amount of debt this year, it will cut 2.5 years off of our loan repayment, which means in about 3 years' time, we would be debt-free. So in working with Baird Financial, the timing is right from a financial standpoint to talk about our needs because we have all of the capacity between that yellow line or the yellow bars and the blue dotted line to phase in new debt with a neutral impact for that part of the bucket of the tax levy. Okay. What that equates to is we could borrow $73 million without going above that blue dotted line. So in other words, that bucket for debt would stay at the same amount and we could borrow $73 million. Each increment of $9 million above that 73 equals a 25-cent increase to the mill rate. So for each quarter, 25 cents more in mill rate, you can get another $9 million of debt. Any questions on the financial picture?
Mr. Rins-Gilbert. So Ms. Hauser, what would the total, to date, I guess, do you know what the total interest cost savings is for our constituents on the prepayments of debt? Approximately?
I would rather look that up and get it to you.
That's perfect.
Okay.
And then I guess if we maintained our debt defeasance at the same rate now, if you could find out what the total cost savings would be once we have Herman paid off.
Absolutely.
Okay, thank you.
Other questions?
I guess this is the slide that I'm not understanding it very well. And I think it might have been new at Soup with the Soup, sorry. That was not right. What does the 397 mean and the 113? What do those numbers?
Yeah, so the 113, that's representing mill rate. So $1.13 is our mill rate impact for our required debt payment. So the yellow bars are our required debt payment. The gray bar is the amount of debt we defeased last year. So that's assuming we would carry that same defeasance forward.
Okay, thank you. Yeah,
Yep.
that makes sense.
Mr. McKenna?
Yeah, I just wanted to correct or make sure that I heard this right. So we took out Herman debt in 2018 as a 20-year loan.
Yes.
So set to be paid off in 2038, not 28, correct?
Oh, I apologize. Yes.
Okay. So we are projecting that we're going to pay that off in 2026 tax year. So we're going to pay off a 20-year loan in 8 years. Is that accurate?
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Okay. Thank you.
Yep.
Other questions?
I just have a follow-up. That's going to be a considerable savings when you take a look at state aid that's been offered for our constituents.
Yeah, and
We
the
need to
interest
make-
savings will be in the millions. I just couldn't
yeah.
tell you which number in the millions.
Absolutely, and that's going to be important for our constituents to understand as we look into a much larger referendum moving forward. But the opportunity is definitely there.
And all of this is with maintaining one of the lowest mill rates in our area, as well as a mill rate below the state average.
By about 40 cents, right? State average is $7.70.
Sounds right.
Other questions?
Ms. Hauser, or Mr. Burns-Gilbert, could I just make a comment here? Okay, so I am not an expert in this. I don't pretend to be. But I do recall some of the questions and concerns that I've heard from constituents regarding the mill rate and how much the district spends on defeasance and the referendum being approved to be paid off over 20 years and us shortening it and what that does. And so I kind of explained to Mr. Russ today in an email, what helps me understand this is that if the district does not spend this money on debt, if we don't assume this debt, or if we, in other words, save money, the state as a whole does not spend less on education. If our savings does not reduce the state's amount that they spend on education, but what it does is that it transfers that the state will spend that money on other districts. But when we have debt and we pay it off early and we get that tertiary or 40% state aid, other districts are essentially paying for 40% of our referendum costs.
You are exactly correct.
And that is so powerful. And I think if the community, from my perspective, if the community can grasp that and accept that as crazy, illogical truth that it is, this makes so much sense for our district. It just makes sense. So, thank you.
Thank you. And to go off of that, an analogy I often use is the state budget sets the size of the pie. So picture a pie, that's our state aid, and that's for the whole entire state. And how big Sparta's piece of the pie is, it's dependent on how much money we spend the previous year, which includes how much debt we diffuse or debt we pay down. So the more debt we pay down this year, the bigger our slice is next year. That doesn't decrease taxes in the state. It gets the money into Sparta versus any of the other communities over the state.
Other questions? Did you
Not
get
so
it
much. Not so much a question is just to piggyback on Amy saying better than I've ever been able to say why this matters to the community. And I think this is the reason that we really need to listen to what the community wants. This is their money. But if we're going to do something, let's do it in the way they can use it. Do it in the way they want it. I'm very, very, very frugal. But if I go shopping and everything in the store is 40% off, I'm probably going to buy some wish list items. I'm going to buy my wants, but I might pick up a couple wish lists too. And I don't think these should just be our wish lists. If we have senior citizens that love walking in the morning and they want a walking track, for goodness sakes, if we're going to do a three-place in gym, do it. If we have a pottery club that needs to use let's listen to what they want. Let's help them build our building in their vision. I don't want this to be a high school for the kids that are going to high school today. It's got to be a high school for the kids that are going there 40 years from now and 60 years from now. And everybody that's going to call Sparta home between now and then. If we, as 11 people on the stage or whatever it is, do a vision of this, I can't see anybody out there supporting it. But the better job we do of listening to them and guiding them and showing them that this is really the responsible way to spend our tax dollars that are going to the state of Wisconsin. And if we don't take it, they're going to spend it on something we will never get to open the door on. They're going to spend this money. I want to get back everything that I give them.
Other comments, questions?
I have a question.
Yeah.
What if we would go all out on this project? What is our debt ceiling? I mean,
Yep,
what's
I
our
have that for you.
limitation as a district?
Yeah. So our debt ceiling, so there's state law that says how much debt we can legally borrow, which is 10% of our equalized values. Based on our current equalized values, our debt limit is 166 million. Which the way that's question is going is if we went all in, we would be pretty much right at the top of our debt capacity. With the understanding that's based on a year-old equalized values, and we know property values have continued to rise. So roughly, we're thinking like 170 million would be our debt capacity, meaning even if we wanted to borrow 180 million, we legally couldn't. We would be capped at that 170.
And we would have to have cleared all of our current debt.
Yep, so our current debt would have to be included in that, yep.
And then my second question is, do I have the calculation somewhat close that given the space that we would create underneath the current tax levy at 25 cents per 9 million additional, that would add about $2.75 to the debt levy?
If we did everything? Or
Right, if we went for that 180 million, whatever.
Okay, 1 second, I have that.
Understanding that we've got 73 million in capacity to match our current, but we would need an additional 100 million. That would drive up the levy by 275 maybe.
Yep, and that's per $100,000 of property value. Yep. So, for example, $100 million debt would cost 75 cents. So on a $100,000 home, that would be $75 for the year. $200,000 home, it would be $150 for the year, etc.
For the year, right?
For the year,
Not the
Yep.
month.
Correct. Yep.
Question for you, Ms. Hauser, along those lines. That was where my head was going with that debt capacity. So if we did community right input, if going all in was the route people wanted to go, we would almost be forced to do that in the phases then, because we wouldn't be able to borrow it all at once to do that project, right? Can you just kind of explain how that timeline would kind of play out over the next 5, 10, I mean, depending on how long of gaps there would be between phases?
Yeah, so a rough timeline is if we decide to go to referendum in April, we don't borrow the money right away in April, so it takes about a year to plan. So the debt wouldn't be secured probably at the earliest till the following August or so. And then even then it's some more short-term loans, so the bulk of the borrowing is about a year after the operating referendum were to be approved. And so in that time, equalized values would likely continue to rise. And in that meantime, we would have one more year of debt defeasance as well. So as far as the actual impact, it's probably a little too soon for me to give you a clear answer, but as far as if we were to exceed that debt capacity, you're correct, we'd have to determine some phasing, whether that be deciding to continue to monitor some of the red areas or kind of analyzing it from that way versus, you know, do we phase the high school? So the phasing could happen in multiple areas, not just in the high school, but at this very preliminary stage that we're at, and until we get that community survey feedback, that's how we have the phasing laid out. And then I did look up the state mill rate. You are correct, $7.70 is the current state average. And in our area of districts our size, so in our Mississippi Valley Conference, Toma is the only district with a mill rate lower, and that is because they have no debt.
Thank you. More questions, comments?
Ms. Hauser, I may have misheard you, but I heard operating referendum, but we're not looking for an operating, it's a facilities referendum, is that correct?
Oh, if I said that, I apologize. I would say at this moment, we are waiting to see how the bill goes through regarding the repeal of Act 141 before we...
Okay. Yep, thank you.
So a lot of information. We're still going to be collecting information, still be working with our stakeholders and Ms. Lopez, you're right. We need to get to as many people as we can, as soon as we can. Our goal is between now and that survey to educate. So when a community member sees this and says, why do we need a 3-station gym? They're not wondering, we don't need one. We just want to be able to give them the opportunity and get that information about the why, rather than try to, so we can get that information as accurate as possible from school perceptions. That's our goal one of our goals for facilities between now and the end of September.
That's good. Anything else here, folks? Thank you very much. All right. 2C, financial report.
This will be a quick one because we don't have an approved budget and we really haven't had a lot of activity. So you can see the revenue we've collected is under $100,000. Our expenses that we've had year to date, 1.1 million. And this wouldn't include expenses that were payable, such as our payroll payables at the end of last year. So more than anything, I just wanted to show months like these really articulate the importance of having a fund balance, because our cash inflows and our cash outflows don't align in the district. So that's why there's no colorful charts or anything, because we don't have an approved budget to compare to yet. But more than anything, the takeaway for this month is this is the importance of having fund balance. Any questions? All right.
All right, thank you. Moving right along into business, we have 3A, discussion possible recommendation to approve December 26th as the Christmas Eve holiday under consent. Mr. Russ.
Yes, due to the calendar and Christmas Eve lands on a Sunday, Christmas Day on a Monday, and our handbook says that if you land on a weekend, it goes to the Friday. However, the Friday is a school contact day with students, so therefore it pushes to the Board of Education to set the holiday in the calendar. So due to that, it's my recommendation that we set Tuesday, December 26th as the Christmas Eve holiday.
I'll make that motion.
I will second.
Motion by Mr. Hendricks, second by Mr. Schulte. Any discussion or comments?
Is that okay on consent, Mr. Hendricks?
Yes.
Yep. All right. Hearing no more discussion, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, say nay. All right, recommend to the full board. Thank you. 3B, discussion possible recommendation to approve policies 0144.5 and 5771 under consent. Mr. Ruff.
So first we'll take 144.5. At a conference I was at, we were going through some policies, and one of our policies referenced 144.5. I went back to find 144.5 and could not find that. So bringing this to the board, it's board behavior and a code of conduct. And I just want to make it very clear that this is not because of anything that from the board perspective that we did. There is a talking point in there about cell phones during board meetings. So as a talking point, Dave, if you could bring up that policy 144.5, and if you could make it bigger, that would be great. There's an area about whether or not specifically, we can talk about the policy in general, but whether or not the board would like to entertain, if you're going to use your cell phone during a board meeting, that you would step out, if you would check that box there. The reason behind that is that there could be an open records request for a device that you're using at any time, including your laptop. So if I'm here texting or anything like that, it could be about board, could be using a calculator, could be looking at the board, the information that I present that's too small on the screen. That could be construed as a potential open record request for that. So not to say you couldn't do it, because some boards, I don't have the percentage, but some have it, some don't. So it's really up to whatever the board feels is best use. You look around tonight, some of our board members do not have the laptop and they're using their cell phone appropriately. There's trust there, and I have no problem. And if you do need to take a phone call, we haven't had a board member in my time pick it up and say, start talking. So
you want to do 01445 first?
I would
one at a time?
I would do one at a time.
Yeah. Questions or comments on that policy?
I need a clarification. Right toward the end of the policy regarding the board may consider the following as far as discipline. Item D, it says referral to proceed with efforts to remove the board member from office for cause, etc. What does that mean? Referral to proceed with efforts.
I don't know. To my knowledge, it is very difficult to remove a Board of Education member. You can be censured, you can be disciplined, you can be reprimanded, but I don't know what that really means.
Yeah, and I'm assuming it doesn't mean from the office of being a board member, but from being vice president, I assume.
That could be, yes, you could be removed from office.
I'm just questioning, referred to who? Referral to proceed with efforts to remove the board member from office. Anyway, it just seems like excessive legalese that makes it almost impossible to understand.
I can ask Neola on that one.
Thank you.
Just to make a guess for, I know a lot of, based on the events that I've gone to, I know a lot of board members with 11-member boards, and a lot of them go around committees. So I'm sure that's what it's based on, is a committee, a very strong committee structure, where they would refer it to committee and then it would go on from there. But
Any other questions or concerns on policy 0144.5?
So I do have a comment or two, actually. So as I explained or mentioned to Mr. Russ in an email earlier, we do have a policy 01442, which is entirely repeated, nearly entirely repeated in 144.5, and so that one would get retired at some point.
The goal would be to bring that as part of a Neola update in October.
Okay. And I also, 3 comments. A number of these seem to be repeated in other bylaws. So are there other policies that would also get taken away at a later date, or does this just
If there's any policy that needs to be taken, it'll come in. I can't remember if there's one more or not, but if there's anything that would be repealed from this, we would bring it in October.
Okay. And then under board member interaction with staff, it states that, you know, how we always say that the board only has 1 employee. It states that because the board is the employer of all district staff. I don't know if that's just the terminology that they use, or if that
It's the
is in
terminology.
opposition
It's
to
the
our
terminology they
philosophy.
use.
Okay, so it's not in opposition to our philosophy.
No,
it's
it
just-
is not.
okay.
Nope. And it's, you know, once again, it's as far as my time here, we want board members interacting with staff. We want them interacting with staff. However, once it becomes hey, I want to talk to you about my current employment, I want to talk about something that affects our staff member within the work, then it has to follow the chain of command. If Mr. Follendorf says, hey, I think we need a newer, you know, this greenhouse for the FFA would be fantastic, that's, you know, X, Y, and Z. However, if they do go in a different route, saying, now I'm teaching too many classes, I'm doing X, or when it really relates to their job function, that's when we really need to follow the chain of command.
Mr. Brins-Gilbert, I'd entertain a motion to recommend approval to the full board, policy 144.5, and not to check the cell phone policy.
Is that your motion?
That is, yes.
All right. Motion from Mr. Scholze,
I'll second that.
second from Mr. Wells. Any other discussion or comments to talk through? All right. With that, we can vote on that discussion, or just policy 0144 to make that motion to recommend it to the full board.
Or under consent, whatever.
Please be placed under consent, please.
Yep, under consent. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, say nay. All right, motion passes. How about 5771, that policy?
Yes, this one is for search and seizures. This is a new policy. I went back to our old policies and I can't find any official policy. But this policy from Neola is our best practice that we have been following to my knowledge. And it outlines what we're going to be doing, you know, how it outlines who's going to be in the room, and that sort of thing, and recommended it as presented. Parking lot, the biggest thing is that students, when they come to school, if they bring their cars, they bring their backpacks, they use our lockers, they're all subject to search with costs. We use law enforcement when searches need to go above and beyond, take out your pockets, or can I look into your backpack? If it goes anything beyond that, we always use law enforcement because they're trained on their equipment, they know what to look for, but we take these very seriously, and we need to follow our policies to make sure everyone's protected, students and staff.
Questions? Ms. Lopez?
Regarding the parking permit and search of a vehicle, Mr. Russ, it states that the permission for a student to bring a vehicle on school property shall be conditioned upon written consent of the search of the vehicle and all containers inside, etc. When we spoke earlier, when we emailed earlier, you stated that it is not, written consent is not currently part of the permit application. Would we need to change that?
I think we could change that one way or another, yeah. We'd probably change it. Right now, the kids are getting their parking permits and that sort of thing. We could very easily change that and let every student know that that's been added, who's had that.
Okay, very good, thank you. And also, after it, where it says end of option 2, this, okay, yeah, right there, perfect. These 2 paragraphs refer to search of the student's person or belongings, and it says whenever possible, a search will be conducted by the principal in the presence of the student and a staff member other than the principal. So I believe it also says in there that it would be, yes, the next paragraph, search of a student's person or intimate personal belongings shall be conducted by a person of the student's gender in the presence of another staff member. Shall be conducted. Okay, so my concern was in response to your response to me. I stated that it says whenever possible another person should be present, and I said that that should be always, because I was concerned that we might be putting our staff in liability concerns or physical danger for searching someone's, person. Your response said that it's the best practice to do this, but if a staff member walks by and sees something, they might act. Could you explain that? Because I think that it has to be initiated by an administrator. Is that correct? I just want to be clear that this isn't just like, we just don't have people walking by and saying, let me see what's in your pocket. Is that a vape? Can I see what's in your pocket? I would assume that an administrator has to be notified and then.
Well, and that goes back to the intent of the response is if I think, I'm sorry, Ashley,
yeah,
you're
and
to the right of me, and if Ashley's vaping and puts the vape in her pocket, hypothetically, I think it's reasonable for a teacher to say, hey, give me the vape in your pocket. Empty your pocket right now. I saw it, and so those are the things that refers to, so that when I ask Ashley that, she comes at, she goes, well, you weren't directed to do that. You weren't directed to do that. I could say, Ashley, please come with me. Either one is acceptable because time's a factor, and then sometimes Ashley might say, I'm sorry, I'm not coming with you, and I'm going to go to the bathroom, and I'm going to run into the So it's a judgment call, and I just don't want to put our staff in a position where they see something, they act in good faith, and this happens. Best practice is Ashley, you're coming with me. However, it's reasonable to say, hey, Ashley, I saw you just put a thing in your pocket, and is that a search? Say, well, okay, here you go. Oh, okay, now you're coming with me, and that sort of thing. So it's best practice to do that. It's best practice if Pat's a teacher or a staff member, hey, we need to talk with Ashley right now because she may be running out the door.
So does this policy allow for that, though?
Yes.
The way you read it, it states that it allows for just any staff member to perform that type of.
If in that scenario, yes, they can't say, I can't say, hey, Ashley, look in your bag. I want to look for no particular reason. They better say, hey, I know Ashley gave that, and then we're talking about something else. Okay. So I just don't want to set our staff up for failure to say, hey, I saw that, Ashley, come on, give it to me.
Neither do
I don't want our staff members diving in there. But Ashley can say, yeah, okay.
After the use of dogs, after C, is that the beginning of the conclusion? That's not really any more part of the use of dogs, correct? Where it says the principal or designee. Okay.
Yeah.
The informant is identified. Is that part of public record? Would that prevent somebody from notifying, from telling if their name is collected and made part of the report? Just a little concerned about that. And then, well, I don't know if you have any thoughts or if anyone has thoughts about that.
I'm trying to think, when we've gone through other scenarios like this, there's been redactions in place. And that would be my assumption. We'd want to speak with legal on that.
I'll speak with legal on
yeah.
that, because that does read, I understand how you read it. It's like, no, if Pat says Ashley's got it, I'm not telling Ashley that Pat did it.
Mm-hmm.
So, but I can ask that too.
Okay, and then the next paragraph, the district administrator may request the assistance of law enforcement in implementing any aspect of this policy, but should it not also there say or designee, because part of our communication also said that it was not, the district administrator might not be involved in this at all?
Yep.
Okay, thank you.
So I did add that or designee, and I'll get back for those Neola questions as well.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Burns Gilbert, I would entertain a motion to recommend full approval to the board for policy 5771 and be placed under consent.
I'll second.
Motion by Mr. Scholze, second by Mr. McKenna. Any other discussion, comments?
I have one other
Yeah.
thing. Under school property, the last sentence in the first paragraph, board directs the school principals to provide students with written notice of this policy at least annually, and that routine inspections be done at least annually of all storage places. Do we currently inspect all lockers and such annually?
Yes, we do.
Okay. Thank you.
Would that motion include the adding the written consent to the permit application? Or yes, permit application? No, just notifying that, or is that necessary?
I don't think so.
I was going to say, I don't know that it's not, yeah.
We'll
That
add
would
it.
be part of our process.
Mr. Ford? No, you're okay. You'll add it to the parking permit. Don't worry. Yeah.
All right. Any other discussion? Otherwise, we can all in favor for moving that to the next board committee meeting. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, say nay. Motion passes. Thank you. All right. 3C, discussion and possible recommendation to approve the Sparta Area School District Employee Handbook revisions that were presented under consent.
All right. So just going through the document, there's a summary on the slides, which Dave clicked over. There's some updates to the long-term substitutes, some new for that currently. Just to clean up some language about long-term substitutes, not just teachers, but educational assistants, secretaries. They get paid at the same hourly rate as they were replacement. Our current practice does not have that. Any classified staff members paid at 25 cents less than the normal rate. This handbook change would allow us to pay them at that normal rate. They're doing it a long term for us. I think it's the right thing to do, and our teachers currently get that per diem rate as well if it's over, I believe, 12 days, consecutive days, or with mutual agreement. So that's an add. New language for the daily rate for non-instruction. That's kind of right there. So I'm sorry, backing up. The first section is 12 or more days in the same. It defines a long term, and then there's the long-term pay rate for the applicant for the substitute, as we talked about. The next update is entirely new language. We do have building substitutes. We have substitute teachers and building substitute educational assistants. They're a very valuable part of our educating of our kids. They're a member of our. We treat them like a member of our staff. So when we do have a sub and we don't get it, they fill in right there, and sometimes they fill in for long-term positions too to do that. So we did give them some additional paid leave. Actually, some paid leave. Before they didn't have any paid leave, so we gave them 5 days of paid leave, 2 personal days, and they already get benefits. They're eligible for benefits if they want. So it's really giving them additional benefits because to show how valuable they are. Same thing with educational assistants. For building educational assistants, they get the same holidays. They get 5 days of paid leave, 2 personal days, and so forth with benefits there. And then some updates, some middle management administration. We do have some middle management that jump to administration, and some classified staff that jump to middle management. That grandfathers their years of service into the district, so they're not starting out fresh. If someone goes from a classified secretary to a middle management, those years of service would continue for vacation accrual. And then finally, SHS is looking to do a academic and career planning coordinator. Instead of the funds are there, instead of doing the PBIS coordinator, there's some rationale there. So real quickly, Mr. Ford's here to answer any questions. This position started like several of our extra duty positions as built into the class schedule. And this position develops all the grad group slides, develops all the Zello or career cruising lessons, and really puts forth and will continue part of the SEL as well. However, Ms. Hagan currently does this. However, her position became more increased in load with the EL, so therefore it'd be an extra duty contract that way. PBIS is going to be taken over by the assistant principal with the addition of the dean. The assistant principal would have more dedicated time to oversee all of the PBIS initiatives. However, SHS does have a tier 1 and a tier 2 PBIS, and that would continue.
Good.
All I have.
All right. Questions or comments from the board?
Holy acronyms, Batman.
I'm sorry.
Wow.
Sorry. ACP is academic and career plan. PBIS is positive behavior interventions and support. How many more?
EL.
EL, English language learner, teacher.
Mr.
Thanks for letting me
Gilbert.
go.
Yeah, that was pretty good. Pretty good. I'd make the recommendation to approve to the full board Sparta Area School District Employee Handbook revisions and be placed under consent.
All right. A motion by Mr. Schulze there.
I'll
Any-
second.
Second by Mr. Hendricks. Any other discussion or comments for Mr. Russ? Mr. Ford?
I do have a question.
Yeah.
Just for informational purposes, are building teacher substitutes and building educational assistant substitutes ever hired midterm, mid-year, throughout the year?
Yes, they
Yeah.
are, depending on our need.
So then are their leave days prorated?
Yes.
Okay. And do we have an idea how this will affect the budget? Will this will increase the costs?
No, we're not looking to increase because we already have, this alone will not increase the cost. It gives additional benefits of, paid leave. We wouldn't get a sub for the sub, for example. The academic and career planning position would replace the positive behavior intervention and support positions at Sparta High. So there's no budgetarily impact. This is good for not only our employees, but good for our building and building climate.
Absolutely. Thank you.
Other questions? I just had one question about the ACP. What is that? Academic Career Plan. So I think if I remember back to our conversations around Dean of Students, right, adding those different roles, and that was one of my concerns of seeing that being added to the assistant principal role. I thought part of that piece was so that then the assistant principals would be able to spend more time in the classrooms supervising the teachers, right? Like, can you speak to what this would look like to adding more to the assistant principal plate when that was part of those earlier conversations of it purposefully freeing up their time to do more of that other piece?
Absolutely, and I appreciate you being cognizant of that, because that's part of adding that dean of students, right? So please note that in the past, this was kind of the role as the assistant principal. So
Is that green?
we were green.
There it is.
Not working?
There
we
we
go. So in the past, this was part of the assistant principal's role. Just wanted to solidify it a little bit more strongly, since we were going down the path of defining more clearly what were the dean responsibilities and what were the assistant principal responsibilities. So it's been housed in that area for a while. Second, with our SEL curriculum, we're seeing a little bit of a shift from some of the things that PBIS did towards the SEL curriculum. Some of the things go hand in hand. So it's just a shoring up of the PBIS hierarchy without really losing anything. So I guess from my point of view, it doesn't really add much to the role of the assistant principal. With the help of the dean, I still see it as freeing up the assistant principal to have this oversight.
Mm-hmm. Thank you.
Thank you.
Any other questions?
I
Is
guess
that- yep.
I do, sorry.
Yeah.
So the academic and career planning coordinator is not filled by the dean of students or the assistant principal. It would be another administrator, or?
This is an extra duty contract for one of our teachers. That would be done outside.
Thank you.
All right. Any other questions? All right. We had a motion from Mr. Shosley. Is that second from Mr. Hendricks? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, say nay. All right. Motion passes. Thank you. 3D, discussion, possible recommendation to retire policy 3500, telework under consent. Mr. Russ?
Yes, telework 3500, this was created due to the pandemic and the need to have a policy for extended absences. Specifically, we'll talk the pandemic with COVID. When the pandemic came out, if one of our employees got COVID or their kid had COVID or their daycare shut down, they were out for a mandatory X amount of days. Well, we've moved past that, and now there is no requirement to stay home. If I get COVID, for instance, we're not telling anybody they got to be out for 10 days, wear a mask after 2, or anything like that. So it was focused on extended emergencies. And however, if I have a medical situation that would deal with FMLA, that's a totally different accommodation. So we've had some employees who have been out for an extended period of time as a part of an accommodation. They can work telework. They can't come into work. They're not well enough to work. However, their doctor signs off that they're well enough to telework. That's when a situation can be done. But that is an individual accommodation that's covered under FMLA. So this is really for those extended amount of times. Does remote work or telework still exist on a limited basis? It probably will. It probably will. We don't have any procedures or a policy or even an administrative rule about when that happens. Those are the things that we would have to look forward to put in place. But if the weather's bad and I can't get to work, most likely that's not extended. You'll have to take paid leave, or if we close the buildings down, that's totally different. But we're really trying to limit that telework on those individual bases, because some people love telework. However, other people in some of our positions aren't telework eligible. I know everyone's position is different, but telework is kind of a touchy thing. Why can that person telework and not me? But once again, I know it's all job dependent, but this policy focuses in on those extended leaves and it's our recommendation to retire it.
I'd make a motion to the full board to retire policy 3500 telework under consent.
I'll second that motion.
Motion by Mr. McKenna, second by Mr. Wells. Any other questions, comments?
Real quick, Mr. Russ, the FMLA policy, do you know offhand what policy number that is?
I can get it
You
to
can get it to me later. That's
Yep. I can
okay.
get it to
All right. Thank you for that. Appreciate it.
Any further discussion? All right. Hearing none, we'll do a vote. All in favor for recommending to the full board, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, say nay. Nay. Good. Okay. Motion passes. 4A, going to announcements and information.
All right. We wrapped up summer school. That first week of August went very well. We're still continuing. We still have some activities going on right now, but that will be wrapping up pretty shortly here. SHS went through their schedule pickup and the resource pickup earlier last week, and that was very productive. Our co-curriculars are pretty much all in running around right now. Show choir is continuing their summer camp, so they're active there. Our new teachers tomorrow are all of our new certified staff. Our new teachers come in tomorrow. We have about 20 of them, which is down considerably from in the past, and we have currently nine new educational assistants or classified staff members that are joining the Spartan family. So the 21st is our in-service for our certified staff, 21, 22, 23, 24, and then our classified staff come in the 24th, and everybody's here on the 29th and 30th. We do have our welcome back gathering on the 29th at 7:30. That will be posted, so if anyone wants to join us, that'd be perfectly fine to do that. And September 1, first day of school, very excited. Transportation's routes are already set. Mr. Prestwood's working very hard to make sure nutrition service is up and running, but it's looking very positive for that September 1 start date to do that. And they have the board meetings there, August 28th, and then the committee of the whole, full board committee of the whole annual meeting. It is about 2 months away, so that's a very exciting time. We are planning to have a workshop again to explain school finances, explain where we're at. So we're looking to have that kind of engagement as well, which all goes along with our facility assessments and our master planning as well. So we're planning on doing all that as well. So lots of excitement. And then when we come back on the 28th, just a few short days, and then the kids come and we'll be ready for them. And then you hear the hurrah from the parents and the staff. Not maybe the kids, but no, they're hurrahing too.
Thank you. Thanks for the announcements, Mr. Russ. Any other discussion? Otherwise, I entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Motion by Mr. Scholze.
I'll second that.
Second by Ms. Lopez. All in favor, say aye.
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 We're adjourned.
One more time. All right, we're going to call the meeting to order. The meeting's been noticed to Evans Print and Media Group, WCOW Radio, Magnum Radio, La Crosse Tribune, Sparta City Hall, and Sparta Free Library. Mr. Russ, are there any changes to the agenda?
I do not have any changes.
Thank you. I'd entertain a motion to adopt the agenda as presented.
So moved.
I have a motion from Mr. McKenna. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Second from Mr. Wells. All in favor, say aye.
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 Those opposed? All right. Agenda is adopted. Mr. Russ, do we have any public input?
I do not believe we have any public input.
All right. Thank you very much. Item 2A, under business, employment recommendations, Mr. Russ.
Yes, and board docs is the employment recommendations for today. As we've been going through all summer, the committee of the wholes, we do have a special agenda for employment, just so for your information, but we also can get the certified staff members all ready to go for tomorrow.
Thank you for that, Mr. Russ. At this time, I'd entertain a motion to approve the employment recommendations as presented.
So moved.
A motion from Mr. Wells. Do I have a second?
I'll second that.
A second from Mrs. Lopez. Any further discussion on this topic?
I have a question.
Go ahead, Mr. Hendricks.
We have two Montessori teachers to be approved tonight. My questions are they Montessori certified and if not, will we be investing in their certification?
They are not currently certified, and yes, we are investing in them.
And so are we entering in any type of agreement with them should they leave?
Yes, we have I believe it's called a promissory note. We have a promissory note with them.
Thank you.
Any further discussion on this topic? Hearing none, roll call.
Mr. McKenna?
Yes.
Mr. Hendricks?
Yes.
Ms. Behrens?
Yes.
Mr. Schulze?
Yes.
Ms. Lopez?
Yes.
Mr. Burns Gilbert?
Yes.
Mr. Wells?
Yes.
Motion carries 7-0. Item 3A, entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Motion for Mr. Burns Gilbert. Do I have a second? Second from Mr. Hendricks. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Those opposed? We are adjourned. Thank you very much.
Thank you, everybody.